Hello, everybody, and welcome to the February 7th, 2019 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine, and yeah, I gotta use the laptop again because, quite frankly, my PC camera makes me worried my PC will explode. That's how I'm going to describe the technical difficulties I've been having. Anyway, Tulsi Gabbard continues to prove to me that she just has the power to destroy the. And I don't mean that in a bad way, for the record. Because if you just look at what's been going on, it's clear to me that Gabbard is very similar to Donald. The fact that they're going to smear her every way from Sunday, and it's just not going to work. Because Gabbard is smarter than that. And here's an example. She recently went on MSNBC's Morning Joe, hosted by former Republican Congressman Joe Scarborough, but the media is liberal. For that matter, it was the show that was basically the biggest cheerleader for Donald Trump, right next to Hannity. And then the second Donald got into office, it was, oh no, we hate him now, he's bad. But wait, you backed him nonstop during the campaign? Well, that was different. I don't know why my Joe Scarborough voice sounds exactly like my Mitch McConnell voice. But okay, a side note, I think they got into like a scandal when they married at the Congressional Archives. That was the Morning Joe. Despite the fact that that's illegal and no one else has ever done that, but okay. This is from The Hill. Gabbard, Assad, quote, is not the enemy of the United States. Representative Tulsi Gabbard, D. Hawaii, a 2020 presidential candidate, said Wednesday that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is not the enemy of the United States. Assad is not the enemy of the United States. Wow, she said that. Because Syria does not pose a direct threat to the United States. Yes, that should be common sense. Apparently it's not in this world. Because remember, if you remember during the Iraq war build, they at least had to pretend like it was an excuse. Like they had actual reasons, like Saddam Hussein was a threat because he did 9/11. I mean, he had WMDs. I mean, he was bad. Uh, all of those reasons. And probably more. But now it's just, well, he's a dictator. We don't like him. We back 73% of the world's dictators. Is Donald going to declare war on Brazil since they just elected a fascist? Probably not. And for that matter, it's weird to me that these are the people we're focusing about, because people like the Brazilian president, they could actually affect people. Much more people than Syria, which is sort of sitting there doing nothing. We've never declared war on Saudi Arabia. We've never declared war against... Who else have we declared war? We've not declared war against surprisingly little countries. But you get my point. Gabbard has previously been criticized for meeting with Assad in 2017, but, you know, every other president and every other politician can meet with any other foreign power, and that's not an issue, as long as it's not the one that we say is bad. And to be fair, Assad is bad. I am not saying otherwise. But so is basically every leader at this point. When pressed Wednesday over whether Assad is an adversary of the U.S., Gabbard said, quote, "You can describe it however you want to describe it. My point is that whether it is Syria or any of these other countries, we need to look at how their interests are countered to our allied with ours." Host Joe Scarborough and NBC News correspondent Casey Hunn questioned whether Assad's interests are, quote, aligned with ours. Most of the world isn't, quite frankly. Hunt noted that Assad's interest in the, quote, slaughter of his own people, which every government has been guilty of at some point, side note, but they'll never tell you that. While Scarborough pointed to Assad's use of chemical weapons, actually, there's more evidence that those were rogue generals than there is that it was Assad himself, at least from what I've seen. And James Mattis admitted at one point that the previous reports were wrong. But that never got played. Or maybe it did get played once at 2 in the morning, who knows. Gabbard said it's important to, quote, talk about all these things, but add that it's also important to talk about how our military is being used. Completely fair. It is important to talk about how our military is being used, what it is costing them, and what it is costing the American people, and whether or not those missions, those objectives, serve the security of the United States and the American people, she said. Gabbard has previously defended her 2017 meeting with Assad, saying last month, quote, "It's important for any leader of a country to be willing to meet with others, whether they be friends or adversaries or potential adversaries." Yup, completely agree. And for that matter, I don't want to throw stones, Mr. Scarborough. I get that you are a good Republican, that is, until your good Republican friends realize that you are the most obnoxious person ever to exist. Yes, Scarborough stopped being a Republican because all the other ones hated him. I don't know how you do that, but Joe Scarborough found a way. But you are on MSNBC, good sir, which is affiliated and owned by several networks who endorsed Hillary Clinton and directly called most opposition to her sexist. Now, to Hillary Clinton's credit, now this is a wide myth that she called her opposition sexist. She never did that. People at MSNBC, on the other hand, did regularly. So may I just take a minute and ask, why is it that you are treating Tulsi Gabbard so badly? Is it because she's a woman? For that matter, let's not forget how much you guys love the military. Remember in the 2000s when you purged all anti-Iraq war voices, including former Governor Jesse Ventura, one of the most famous journalists of all time, Phil Donahue, and one of their highest rated shows, Buchanan Press, starring Pat Buchanan and Bill Press. So, wait a minute. And why did they get rid of Buchanan Press? Because their left-right debate show stopped being about debating when both hosts came out against the Iraq war. But they were supporting terrorists, I guess. Despite the fact there were more terrorists in Iraq later. Now, Tulsi Gabbard has served in the military in Iraq. Has Joe Scarborough? Not to my knowledge. So, Joe, why do you love terrorists now? Yes, these are loaded and very stupid. How did you know? Now you see how I've been seeing you for years. It cannot be stressed enough just how much I despise MSNBC. I am half convinced they are a plot to make people hate the Democratic Party by being the most obnoxious imbeciles known to man. But that's just unbelievable. You know what is believable, though? That Cortez is a communist. No, that's also not believable. That's in fact still really stupid. But Ben Shapiro seems to believe it. Oh yeah, Cortez finally introduced her own Green New Deal proposal. And Shapiro wrote an article on it called, now prepare, mind you, for such an intellectual title you will not believe it, AOC's Green New Deal proposal, one of the stupidest documents ever written. This is, of course, the #1 trending article at the Daily Wire, right behind classics such as Matt Walsh's The 5 Most Hilarious and Insane Things in Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal Proposal. Ryan, no clue how to pronounce that last name, dude. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that you should be thrown over a wall. The joke is his name sounds foreign. To be absolutely clear, I'm not endorsing violence, you idiots. Ocasio-Cortez attacks ICE after illegal MS-13 gangster as opposed to all the legal MS-13 gangsters. Allegedly murdered someone in her district. You know, some people say Pelosi excludes Ocasio-Cortez from new climate change committee, and it has it looking like she's crying as a picture. I'm convinced. And, of course, Emily Zanotti? When the Italians send their people, Mandatory train travel and regulated cow farts. The Green New Deal is even crazier than you thought. But we're looking at Shapiro's Daily Wire original. I may get to those other people at some point, but probably not, because quite frankly, they're about as interesting as dirt. Or Howard Schultz, for that matter. In fact, for once, I'd much rather talk about Howard Schultz. A new poll found that only 4% of the American people wanted Howard Schultz to be president. Despite that, CNN is still giving him a town hall before he's even announced his candidacy, something that they didn't do for Stein or Johnson or Castle or any third-party candidate, or really even most major party candidates. But he's a Starbucks billionaire, so what he says must be important, and he's a moderate. Don't forget, he's a moderate who left the party in a temper tantrum because someone was mean to him. And he's currently calling the word billionaire offensive, might I add, saying that we need to refer to them as people of means, or maybe that was a Twitter joke. I don't know at this point, because everything that happens in Howard Schultz's life, I just assume is stupid. Still, 1 in 25 people wanting him to be president is way too many. I'm stalling. Let's actually get to this. Now, Shapiro spends roughly the first third or so of the article not actually talking about the policy, and instead just sort of insulting people who support it. It's about as interesting as a Ben Shapiro article. Here's what he actually says. How bad is the Green New Deal paper, putting aside the fact that, as written, it would receive a C+ in any high school English class? Yeah, and Truth Allegiance would get an F. What's your point? It essentially articulates a magical world. Is there a fallacy for this? If not, I'm calling it the utopian fallacy, in which the skies rain chocolate. The world is powered by unicorn farts. I'm not against that idea. And AOC dances through Drumgoff meadows to I've Listomania? Is that a song? What the heck is that? A biographical / musical film from 1976. Why that movie? It was also released the same year as Tommy, apparently. Which makes me think I may have got the year wrong, because Wikipedia says Tommy was released in 75. I'm so baffled by this, I feel like I have to break down why using this wording was stupid. The proposal calls for the United States to be free of carbon emissions within 10 years without the use of nuclear power, because nuclear power is non-renewable. And if you want a long-term solution, you're going to need renewable energy. Now, don't get me wrong, I do support nuclear energy and believe it be very good as a transition period between what we have now and complete renewable energy. However, the fact is, expecting it to be the sustainable long-term solution is, well, it would only work in a magical world in which the skies rain down chocolate, the world is powered by unicorn farts, and Matt Walsh dances through gumdrop meadows to, I don't know, Muppets Most Wanted. There. I found a movie just as random as, I'm still not entirely sure how to pronounce that. It calls for every building in the United States, which he italicized, by the way, to be replaced or retrofitted in green fashion. Yeah, that's called giving an extreme proposal, so when it's moderated down in Congress, you get what you want. It's something Republicans do all the time. And for that matter, it's something that Democrats don't do enough. But Shapiro finally found someone who can play politics, and this is how he responds. It calls for universal health care, yes. Free college education, yup. The replacement of airplanes with high-speed trains. Okay, that does sound unreasonable if you're doing it internationally. Nationally, I think that could work, though. I mean, have you seen the trains around Japan? Those are pretty cool, dude. I am not at all against doing that. Here's hoping the Hyperloop can get us there. I actually don't know much about the Hyperloop. I just wanted to sound relevant. Charging stations, quote, everywhere. Again, that's just an extreme proposal that's going to be moderated and specified later on. You're expecting the rough draft to be the final version. That's something I've noticed about you. Do you write all your books in one draft? Considering Truth Alliance, that would make a lot of sense. This is the sort of exactness the proposal contains. Replacement of every combustion engine vehicle. Again, sounds like one of those things that will be moderated later. Government provided jobs. Those have existed as long as government has. And you've written a whole book about how governments existed from the beginning of time. Family and medical leave. Okay, can work. Even your buddy Donald knows that. I'm sorry, you're not a Donald supporter. You just agree with him 90% of the time. Vacations, retirement security, and the abolishment of farting cows. Because they produce CO2. That's just objectively true. It also calls total economic security for anyone unable or unwilling to work. Again, you're really bad at playing politics, aren't you, Ben? Honest to God, if unwilling to work is in the final bill, I will come out here and defy the laws of physics. That's how little of a chance I give that. Whether AOC plans to chain up billionaires, you are just really whiny sometimes, you know that? And work them against their will, as that's not how work against your will works, but okay. Or simply engage in anti-billionaire dekulagization. Ben has a thesaurus, and he's proud to use it. Also, everyone I don't like is Stalin. Remains to be seen. After all, someone will have to pay for this. Yeah, and we have a plan for that. It's called investments. Look into them. Did no one invest in Daily Wire? And you just, with your rugged individualism and $13 to your name, create your website? What about Truth Revolt? Well, that failed. That probably didn't have any investors now that I think about it. Carry on. Or not, according to AOC, no one will have to pay for this. Like a timeshare you bought on the big island of Hawaii in 1997, the thing will pay for itself. This is a direct quote. Quote, at the end of the day, this is an investment in our economy that should grow our wealth as a nation. So the question isn't how will we pay for it, but what will we do with our new shared prosperity? That's perfectly fair. I mean, look at how much revenue the interstate highway system Eisenhower built gave us. Look at the fact that the GI Bill, for every $1 we spent on that, we got 7 in return. Those are both just objective facts, Ben. But all of that's ignored because investments don't exist unless they're the beloved private industry. In which case, they're perfect and should never be questioned by anyone, especially, God forbid, congressional Democrats from states that I don't like but choose to live in. Yeah, he hates California. He chooses to live in California. Same thing with Sean Hannity. Same thing with Tommy Lawrence. And so on and so on. The question, guys, isn't how to pay for your fryer. I just cannot stand you. I correct myself. Oh, finally. My 2-year-old son, you are very obnoxious. But we've been told AOC is a fresh-face trademark of the Democratic Party. So fresh, so face. What does that even mean? Sadly, the intellectual content that emulates from the fresh face is indistinguishable from the product of the cows she seeks to abolish. Ha 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 ha. I figured I should end this with the top comment I found on this Daily Wire article. Bill813 says, every time she Guevara, get it? Opens her mouth, I'm reminded of Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men. Should we or should we not follow the advice of the galactically stupid? One of the replies by Manny, I have no clue how to pronounce that, is simply She Guevara, lol. I'm Ephrom, and good night.